Donald Trump's proposed $275 billion battleship plan is facing growing scrutiny over its staggering cost and feasibility. Analysts say America's shipyards and defense budget may struggle to accommodate an entirely new class of warships. Critics warn the proposed Trump-class battleships could divert funding and industrial capacity from carriers and submarines. Defense experts argue the project risks delaying other high-priority naval programs already under pressure. Military analysts question whether massive battleships remain practical in an era dominated by hypersonic missiles and drones. The proposal also comes as the U.S. faces mounting pressure to replenish missile stockpiles after recent conflicts. Donald Trump's proposed Trump-class battleships could cost the United States about $275 billion, according to a new estimate by the Congressional Budget Office. The Congressional Budget Office said each nuclear-powered battleship could cost more than $18 billion, placing them among the most expensive warships ever planned. The CBO estimated the lead ship alone could cost $23.4 billion, with follow-on vessels expected to cost around $18 billion each once production stabilizes. The U.S. Navy plans to build 15 Trump-class battleships between 2028 and 2056 under its latest long-term shipbuilding strategy. The heavily armed warships are expected to carry hypersonic weapons, electric railguns, cruise missiles, and some of the world's most advanced laser systems. The CBO said the program could raise annual procurement spending on major surface warships to nearly $18 billion by 2027. CNN reported that U.S. shipyards may not currently have the industrial capacity needed to build such massive nuclear-powered combat vessels. Reports said the proposed Trump-class ships would be more than 3 times larger than today's Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers. CBO said, and I quote, "By 2035, the Navy's plan would more than double the tonnage of large surface combatants that shipbuilders would need to produce. Accommodating such a sizable increase in the production of large surface combatants could be a challenge for the shipbuilding industry." Unquote. Newport News Shipbuilding is expected to build the new battleships, raising concerns about pressure on existing carrier and submarine construction programs. The report warned that adding an entirely new class of nuclear-powered warships could further delay aircraft carrier and submarine production schedules. The Congressional Budget Office said U.S. destroyer programs are already facing years of delays and significant cost overruns before this project begins. Analysts also questioned whether investing in giant battleships makes strategic sense as drones, hypersonic missiles, and submarines reshape modern naval warfare. Retired Admiral James Stavridis said, and I quote, "Does it make sense to put so much expensive weaponry and so many sailors on a single potentially vulnerable platform? Given today's drone swarms, stealthy submarines, hypersonic missiles, advanced torpedoes, and offensive cyber weapons. Putting lots of eggs in a handful of big baskets doesn't make much sense." Unquote. U.S. President Donald Trump reportedly confronted defense to War Pete Hegseth over growing concerns about America's military readiness during high-level national security discussions. According to the Washington Post, Trump reportedly clashed with Pete Hegseth after being briefed on shrinking U.S. munition stockpiles following months of military operations. The reported confrontation took place during a high-level meeting at Camp David on July 31st, where senior officials were discussing strategy for the Iran conflict. Trump was reportedly left frustrated after learning that key U.S. missile inventories were significantly lower than he had previously been led to believe. Sources claimed Trump had earlier been assured that the munitions issue had been resolved, but he reportedly believed he had been given a misleading assessment. The report said Trump demanded to know why he had received what he viewed as an inaccurate picture of America's military readiness and available weapons. The United States is reportedly facing shortages of several long-range guided missiles, as well as critical air defense interceptor systems needed for future operations. THAAD interceptor missiles, which play a vital role in defending U.S. bases against ballistic missile threats, are reportedly in critically short supply after recent operations. The reported shortages have become an increasingly important constraint on U.S. military planning as Iran continues to demonstrate its retaliatory missile capabilities. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt strongly rejected the report, dismissing the claims as fake news and denying any clash between Trump and defense to War Pete Hegseth. Caroline Leavitt said, and I quote, "I was at Camp David with President Trump and Secretary Hegseth. This literally never happened, and we told the Washington Post that repeatedly. This BS story was shopped to many outlets by someone clearly out to disparage the secretary, for whatever reason. Unfortunately for them, the president loves the secretary and thinks he's doing a tremendous job. Fake news. Unquote. The US military used nearly 80% of its THAAD interceptor stockpile during the Iran conflict, according to a CNN report. Reports also say the United States has expended roughly half of its Patriot missile inventory since the conflict with Iran began. Senior US military commanders are reportedly warning that stockpiles of several key precision munitions have reached dangerously low levels. The THAAD air defense system plays a critical role in intercepting ballistic missiles at high altitudes and protecting strategic military assets. Patriot air defense systems have also been used extensively to intercept Iranian ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drone attacks throughout the conflict. CNN reported that the US Army has consumed virtually all of its available long-range precision strike missiles during recent operations. Army Tactical Missile Systems, or ATACMS, were among the precision weapons reportedly depleted after months of sustained combat operations. The report also said the Army's newer precision strike missiles, or PRSMs, were heavily consumed during recent military operations. US stockpiles of Tomahawk cruise missiles have also reportedly declined significantly following months of intensive military operations. The Center for Strategic and International Studies estimated the United States possessed approximately 452 THAAD interceptors before the conflict began. CSIS also estimated that the United States had roughly 2,200 modern Patriot interceptor missiles before the outbreak of the war. The shrinking missile inventories have raised concerns about America's readiness for potential high-intensity conflict in the Indo-Pacific region. Several Gulf allies have reportedly warned that lower US missile stockpiles could weaken regional defenses against future missile and drone threats. A number of America's regional partners rely heavily on THAAD and Patriot air defense systems to protect critical energy infrastructure. CNN reported that concerns over munitions shortages were discussed before President Trump decided to halt planned military strikes against Iran. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reportedly received the initial authorization before the planned operation was later placed on hold. On August 4, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth publicly rejected CNN's report and denied claims that the US military is facing a critical weapons shortage. A new report claimed the US has used virtually all of its long-range precision missiles during the war with Iran, raising fresh concerns over America's military stockpiles. The depleted inventory reportedly includes Army Tactical Missile Systems, or ATACMS, along with newer precision strike missiles, according to the Times of Israel. Sources told the report that the prolonged 5-month conflict had sharply reduced US inventories of key long-range precision-guided weapons. The report said the declining missile stockpile has raised concerns about America's readiness to respond to any future large-scale military conflict. Analysts warned that shrinking inventories could weaken US deterrence against major adversaries such as Russia and China if another crisis emerged. One source said US Central Command had replenished part of its inventory by transferring munitions from other regional commands during the conflict. However, the sources declined to reveal how many ATACMS or precision strike missiles the United States still has available in its remaining arsenal.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.